Hello and welcome back to Building Momentum, the show where we peel back the curtain on the exciting and often chaotic world of building a successful technology business. I'm Yash, your host for this show, where every episode we bring you the stories and strategies of people who've been in the trenches, conquering churns, scaling their teams, and building products that people and businesses love. In this episode, we'll be chatting with Philippe from fullpower.ai. Full Power is a leading firm that has over 135 patents specializing in real-time AI, deep learning, and biosensing. We're excited to hear the story and the lessons they've learned along the way. We'll be dissecting the wins, the losses, and everything in between. So buckle up, grab your headphones, and get ready to dive in the world of building products. Hey, Philippe, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thank you. How about you?
I'm doing great as well. Thank you for taking out the time. And let's start with the key sort of fundamental question. What's the big bad problem that you're trying to solve?
Right now, the problem we're solving is basically AI-powered biosensing. So unlike a lot of people who are in AI, we are at the edge dealing with sensors and the environment and patients, et cetera, and using AI to make sense of everything rather than trying to build abstract AI solutions or enterprise AI software or stuff like that. We don't do that. What we do is practical things that apply to healthcare and monitoring the environment and sensing in general.
Got it. And we'll dive a little deeper into that sometime. However, there's an interesting part over here which I'd love to explore a little more, which is in all the episodes that we've had up until now, we've had people who were running an agency and wanted to build a product, or they were doing a job and then started a company, or they were students and then took a risk and started a firm. You are our first guest who's an educator and who's starting a company. So talk to us a little about why did you make the shift from academia into starting a company, and how did that come about?
Well, I was an immigrant from France. I grew up in France. Here we're talking from Silicon Valley. It's actually quarter to midnight here.
Oh wow.
And
Got
what
it.
time is it where you are?
It's 15 past 12 in the afternoon.
Yeah,
So fairly comfortable for me for sure.
good afternoon for you. So I feel like I'm in a nightclub. And so I was an immigrant in America, and so I came as an immigrant. And the reason I went from working in France is I had done on the side from my work in academia, et cetera, and teaching, I had done some software development and sold some software to some American companies. I got a bit lucky, and when I met these people, they said, you know, you really belong in Silicon Valley, not in the States, but in Silicon Valley. And at the time, and you know, when I heard that a lot, I got kind of bored a little bit with academia and all that. And I said, you know, I'm going to go to Silicon Valley and get a job because I had no interest in building a company. I know nothing about business. I knew nothing about business, right? And I didn't need anybody. So I basically took a plane from Paris to San Francisco and got a very cheap room in San
Okay.
Jose on top of a garage and started looking for work like a lot of people, like an immigrant. And my English wasn't as good, but it was decent. And I had a good resume. I did some work, and I had luck with Hewlett Packard, with Atari at the time, and all that. Unfortunately, because I didn't have a green card, they could not hire me. So I started doing some consulting for them, and that paid my bills a little bit. At the same time, when I got here, my room was on top of a computer store. And at the time, in the computer industry, there were no standards for printer cables. You know, printer cables were all different, right? This is the beginning of the IBM PC. All the plugs were different. Everything was
Yeah.
different. There was no local area networks, really. Everything
Yeah.
was connected by cable. And that computer store says, could you make printer cables? I said, sure. You know, when you're an immigrant and you want to work, you do, people ask you to do something, you do
Yeah.
it. And
Yeah.
I started building those printer cables. And they were good printer cables, and they liked them. And they started selling them, and I would sell them a printer cable for $30, and they sell it for 100. Or they started wanting more printer cables and started selling printer cables in the US. And then they had this custom printer cable business and even sell them in Europe. And
Oh, wow.
then they wanted so many printer cables that I hired a couple of people to make the printer cables for me. And then I started managing them and spending my time doing software consulting for companies like Atari, HP, Intel, and people like that. And so I was able to do some business and like that. And that's how I got here. But I was illegal. I didn't have any resources or any money. And I just did what I had to do to survive. And so that's how I started in Silicon Valley.
What an inspiring story, right? So, and that's how I think it happened earlier in the day, right? So now you would look for an opportunity. If you were to do it all over again, you might want to look for an opportunity while in Paris, and then once you had a few conversations, maybe you make the jump. But this is extremely inspiring, right? Not knowing what's about to happen, taking a flight, going out there, having conviction in your own sort of skills and character, and be able to figure things out, right? And that's amazing. The other thing that I want to talk to you about is as you also sort of rightly pointed out, right, that there's a difference between a product person and a person who can run a company, right? How did you go from knowing how to make a product to having to run a company, building a team, negotiating with vendors, reading P&L balance sheet, all of those other skills? Or did you become that person, or did you find a co-founder? Did you find a partner who would do all of those things and sort of focus on what you knew best? What was it like?
No, I have no idea what business was. I still don't.
Okay. Okay.
It's very confusing to me. But my family were modest cabinet bakers in Paris, and they ran a cabinet shop making, cabinets. And so I grew up working in the cabinet shop. I was the first person in my family to actually finish high school, let alone get higher degrees.
Wow.
And I learned in the cabinet shop what it took to sell to customers because they would come and they wouldn't know what they want. And
Yeah.
my grandmother would tell them, "Hey, no, here, I think you need a table made of mahogany and 4 chairs, and we can make them for you in this way and all that. And my husband can decorate them in these ways and all that." And I saw her do that. I saw her run the business. It was a cash business. You only spent what you made.
Yeah.
And I saw my grandfather, basically make the furniture, and the whole family worked on that. I did. So I was working in the shop since I was 8, 9 years old. And so that's where I learned. And so I started my business exactly that way. That's all I knew what to do. I said, I'm going to run it like my grandmother ran the shop, and I'm going to do what my grandfather did, which is great stuff that people want to buy and want to pay for. And that's basically my business philosophy. I had no other co-founder, no venture capital, no capital. None of my old 4 successful business has had any venture capital or any of that.
There's this saying in Hindi. I translate it in English and say it. It will not sound as inspirational, but in Hindi it's extremely inspirational. It essentially means that my professor has been experienced. So I'm not going to. So it sounds really good and well put in the language that I speak. But yeah. So I've been taught with experience or through experience, right? But coming to the product that you have, right? One of the products that you have under the full power platform is sleeptracker.ai. And so talk to us a little bit about why build that product, what benefits does it offer, who is it for, why does that product exist? And before you talk about that, if you can share with us a little bit about the size and scale of ops as things stand today. This will allow the people who are listening to this or watching this on YouTube or Spotify, this will help them sort of put everything that you're about to say in context. So if you can give us sort of a status quo and then follow that with an introduction to a sleep tracker.ai, that will be helpful.
Well, one of the things I want to make a point as is uh, when you see the venture capital back world, and a lot of people want to do that. It's a world made of recipes and ways to do things. and
Yeah.
everybody does the same.
Playbooks.
You need, the playbook thing,
Yeah.
and it doesn't work.
Yeah.
And so it really doesn't work, because if a playbook worked, you could put robots and they'd execute on the playbook. So my theory is that it works one time out of 100 or one time out of 50. But most of the time, it's not going to work, because if it worked, everybody would do it, and there would be no opportunity. It's
Yeah.
just that simple.
Fair.
So all this playbook stuff is one thing. I think you need two things. You really need a vision and a passion for what you're going to do. So for me, my all my companies came from passion for something that I wanted to do, and what was important for my first company was programming languages and tools, programming tools. And so C++, C, Pascal, and all that. And we became the leaders for that. And that's the world I came from, because that's what I studied. And at the time, at the PC revolution, there were no good tools to build software for people. So that was timing was perfect. That's why I knew how to do, and I could build and put a team together to build compilers and to build development environments and all that. So that's a world I understood. My second company, I focus on wireless connectivity, and I thought that after I left my first company after 12 years there, and it was a public company when I left it, I spun off a group that was focused on wireless technology. And at the time, it was the beginning of wireless technology. So we focused on that. And I was part of the people who work with Ericsson and Intel on the Bluetooth specification. So we built the first Bluetooth um, capable platform.
Oh,
And
wow.
the company was acquired by Motorola,
Yeah.
and that was great. That was called Starfish Software. When that happened, the little bit of magic happened, where the first cameras came out. That was a Casio. The first digital camera came out,
Yeah.
and I looked at that, and having experience with Motorola with wireless technology and cellular phone, I thought that putting both the camera and the cellular phone together and creating a platform for that would be really exciting. So I started building that for 8 months, and then I made it all work in a great serendipity event. When my daughter was born, took that picture, and that picture became very famous, one of the most famous pictures in the world, right? And so that worked. And then I was able to get patents and license the technology to companies in Japan first, and then in the US, et cetera. And the company got acquired again by a combination of VeriSign and then later the IP to Google. And
Yeah.
so, and then after that, I started Full Power Technology, because I got interested in the world of biosensing. And my background in the late 80s, early 90s was with early occurrences of AI with Prolog, et cetera, et cetera. And about 15 years ago, when I started Full Power, nobody was talking about AI yet. And so, but I thought that I could use the the concept, at least, of what we call today machine learning,
Hmm.
to actually build an edge cloud system focus on sensor-based biosensing and at the edge of the system. And of course, one of the first applications was to make a partnership with a company called Tempur-Pedic, which is the world leader in bedding, and build with them, build a technology that enables the smart bed, which we do, and now they ship it around the world.
Hmm.
That's so sleep from a consumer perspective has been very successful for our platform. And then we also working on medical applications of what we do for conditions like COPD, chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, apnea, and other diseases that manifest themselves in an acute way during sleep.
Yeah.
And we also apply our platform to dermatology and other healthcare type of systems. So our platform is fairly versatile, but you're right, we initially focused on sleep, and we are the world's, I think, specialists in sleep science. We have a partnership with Stanford University as well as UCSF, University of California, San Francisco.
Got it. Got it. Interesting. And so tell us as to I mean, we'll link a few really good videos and more information, and including a few papers as well down as to what is the importance of sleep and why should you get a really good full night sleep. There's been a lot of studies and research done in and around that. But one of the things that I also want to talk to you about is a lot of entrepreneurs in their early stages confuse and think that work-life balance is opposite of passion, right? So they would say that, if I'm as an example, if I'm working 80-hour work weeks, that means I'm passionate, right? So that's what they define as passion. And I think you have an interesting view on that as well. If you could elaborate that on a little bit, that will be helpful, as well as to what are your thoughts on work-life balance versus passion, and how do you sort of draw a line, and how do you think about it?
I you called something work-life balance? Is that right?
Yeah. So
What
yeah.
is
So
what is that?
um,
What is work-life balance? If you're going to be an entrepreneur, you better forget that.
yeah,
Otherwise, you're a fake entrepreneur and you're just relying on spending other people's money for the hobby of trying to do something. So, if you're truly an entrepreneur, you're going to make a lot of sacrifices
yeah,
and you're going to have a lot of sleepless nights and you're going to miss a lot of sports events if you have kids and a
yeah.
lot of birthdays, and you might not be a good parent, but at the end it'll work out. But the concept of work-life balance is very difficult to associate with entrepreneurship. If you want work-life balance, I recommend you go work for a big company
Mhm.
or or a venture capital company.
Got it. So are we saying that not not have building a lot of wealth in a very short amount of time requires you to identify opportunities and execute. And so for a very short amount of time, you might have to sacrifice on the work-life balance, be passionate about the vision that you're working towards. Recommend getting rid of like a good sleep plus hard work, or sleepless nights are also okay. What are your thoughts around that?
I think that you have to be opportunistic and sleep when you can and be active in sports when you can.
Hmm.
Take care of your family when you can, but you have to be passionate and spend a lot of energy on building your enterprise if you're an entrepreneur. I
Got
think
it.
there's not shortcuts for that, and you need to find a life partner, a husband or wife, whatever you choose, to understand that and to be on that path with you. People don't understand it. I see a lot of people who, oh, I just don't want to work on weekends. I say, you don't want to what? And so this is it's a hard choice. It's like becoming a monk.
Hmm.
When you go and you become a monk, you make some sacrifices.
Yeah.
You're being an entrepreneur is very similar to that. And I know that there's a playbook and people saying, and you should, you raise a lot of money and you run your startup like a big company and all that. I don't think it makes a lot of sense. And ultimately, especially in today's environment, I think it's going to be very challenging to a lot of people. So, all this said, it's really worth it.
Hmm.
And when I say sleep is important, that part of what our solutions for sleep is what's important is not quantity of sleep, is quality of sleep. It's like
Yeah.
everything else.
Yeah.
And if you have the quality and the quantity, that's great. But most importantly, quality comes before quantity. Sorry. I mean,
Yeah.
it's really important. A lot of people say, "Oh, I slept 8 hours," but if it's 8 hours of non-quality sleep in a room that's too hot with noise and all that, you're better off getting 5 hours of sleep or 4 hours of sleep in a quiet, cool room and better sleep. And there's a lot of strategies that have been developed, including taking power naps, 22, 25-minute naps
Yeah.
during the day if you haven't slept. There's many ways. I mean, that's how I operate personally. You're
Yeah.
talking to me, it's midnight right now, and I'll
Yeah.
probably be up till 2 or 3 in the morning, and I'll be up in it. But I operate like that. I have no problem.
Yeah. Very similar. Myself as well. I also have 30-minute power, like two 30-minute power naps during the day. And so I have a really nice place in the office where I can go and sleep. It's extremely dark and quiet and calm, and I can have. Uh, but before I let you go though, I want to understand. You have 100 and like full powered a day, right? As an organization has 135 patents and ISO certifications and all of that as well. But how do you get to that? Like even if I think of 15 years, that's like 10 patents a year. Do you like how do you get there?
Well, that's what I do. I mean, I've been doing that for a long time. I have more than 250 patents to my name. And so
Oh,
I have more than
is
200.
135 wrong? Was it 250?
So you can search. I have more than 250 patents. And
Wow.
in areas like a lot of stuff that I did, including, digital photography, AI, database management, programming languages, compilers, and all that. That's what I do when I have I try to see what is innovative or not, and I research it, and I do it myself. I don't do it with lawyers
Okay.
because a lot of people patent things with lawyers, and I've never understood how lawyers could patent things because lawyers are not inventors; they're lawyers, and they're good. They
Yeah.
might be useful to write things up, maybe, and clean it up. But at the end of the day, the person who has to create the patent, write the patent, has to be an inventor or a team. I work with my team. One of the great secrets of being successful is having a great team, a team that's passionate, that shares the same values as you have, that is motivated by what we're doing, not by trying to make money quickly and all that. If you want to make money quickly, I suggest you create a machine that prints banknotes and make them. But money has to come as a consequence of the value you create and what you
Correct.
build and your passion, really, and the passion of your team. And that's my philosophy.
Got it. Got it, Philippe. Thank you for taking out the time and being with us. This has been an extremely valuable and insightful episode, starting from. And so, one of the things that we try to do with these conversations is at least for early stage founders, they get to see examples of real world people who achieved significantly more and started out from near zero, right? Started out from scratch, right? And so that's always those examples are always helpful.
Well, thank you. I'm going to jump out because it's
Yeah.
past midnight already, and
Yeah.
I wish you a good day. And that was a fun conversation.